Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. In this video I'll be trying to repair a PlayStation 3 and an Xbox that were kindly given to me by a subscriber. They both face notorious issues, so the PlayStation 3's yellow light and the Xbox's red ring. So let's dive in to see if I can bring them back to life. Alright, let's start with the PlayStation 3. I already tested this console and it has the classic yellow light problem. As you can see, it turns on. There is the green light and then nothing. Just a red light. The only option in this case is to open it up and check the PlayStation's condition inside, and this problem can be caused by various factors, so let's open it up to see what the problem might be. This console has never been opened. It also has the warranty seal. Let's remove it and take out the screws underneath. Here there's also a hard drive that I need to remove before opening it. And now that I removed the hard drive and this screw, I can remove the top cover. There are 6 screws that I have to remove here to get access to the console, and even without removing this top cover, I can say that one of the problems is that the console is full of dust, and even the hard disk was full of dust, so I really need to open it and give it a good clean for sure before trying to figure out what the problem might be. But before starting, I just want to say that this video is not a tutorial and should not be interpreted as a tutorial, since I'm not an expert, and there are capacitors in here that might still be charged and that could be dangerous, so don't copy what I do. Alright, let's remove the top cover and have a look inside. Wow, it's full of dust. You can see that even the top cover is full of dust. So this kind of dirt and dust can obviously cause bad connections or also ventilation problems. I'll need to clean it before testing it again, and I'm not even sure I want to clean it inside the attic because it will spread all of this dust in here and I don't want that. I'll remove the power supply and the disk drive and clean it outside with a compressor. I managed to remove the power supply and the disk drive, and now there are just a couple of screws that I need to remove over here to access the motherboard. I also want to remove everything from here so I can access the fan and take everything out and clean it with the air compressor. And I have to say it's not that dirty in here, at least compared to the other parts of the board, even if we have a lot of dust even in here. So definitely I'll need to clean the fan too, and I'll need to replace the thermal paste because obviously I'll need to change it and clean this part from the old one. Finally, I was able to remove everything from the case, and now let's go outside and clean it. So I've cleaned the inside of the case and it was really dusty, and I also opened the power supply because I wanted to clean it a little bit better, and it was really dirty. And I found these signs of corrosion, but I'm not sure where they came from since the capacitors in this area are all fine, and there's also a lot of liquid, so I think it came from the outside, but there doesn't seem to be an issue with the power supply because the console powers on before shutting off again. So I think I'll just clean it before testing the PS3 after the cleanup again. I've cleaned everything thoroughly, and I also removed the old thermal paste over here, which I need to replace, and I also want to replace these thermal pads since 2 of them have detached. But I really doubt that it was just the dust that caused the yellow light problem, since it could be caused by many factors. So to have a better understanding of what's going on, I want to access the Syscon, which is a chip present inside the console from the PS2 to the PS5, and it's responsible for managing sensors, recording errors, and also overseeing the overall functionality of the PS3. It acts like the supervisor of the console, and it ensures that everything runs smoothly. If something goes wrong, the Syscon shuts down the console and logs an error. These logs are stored in a register, which is very useful for a deeper understanding of the console and for a deeper diagnostic. And there are two different ways to access this data, and it really depends on if the console powers on or not. If it does, you can just access this data without having to open the console, but if it doesn't, like in this case, you need to open the console, disassemble it, and connect a USB to serial YLOD adapter to the test points of the Syscon, and their location really depends on the model that you have, but it's a better idea than just guessing what the problem might be, even because in this case the capacitors seems in good conditions and I don't see any obvious signs of problems, so it's better than just guessing what the problem might be and replacing random components. So what I'm going to do now is to replace the thermal paste, the thermal pads, and access the Syscon data. This is actually one of the first time I'm applying thermal paste, so I really hope I can get the perfect amount like Tronifix does, but I'm not sure I'll manage. And the thermal paste is actually very useful because no man-made surface is perfectly smooth, and the tiny gaps between a CPU and a heatsink can negatively affect cooling, but thermal paste fills these gaps to improve thermal conductivity. But thermal paste isn't as conductive as metal, so using too much can act as an insulator, reducing performance. And there are many ways to apply it, so like a dot or the X shape, but tests have shown that the X shape seems to be the best method for achieving lower temperatures, so I'll use that. I'll put it back in place, and now I can access the Syscon test points. To connect the PlayStation 3 to the computer, I obviously need a USB to YLOD adapter, and I have to strip these jumper wires right over here to connect them to these pads that are the test pads of the Syscon. Their location changes depending on the model that you have, and in this case they are right over here. I'm going to add a bit of solder on these pads so I can solder the jumper wires easily. Now all that's left is to connect the PlayStation to the computer with the adapter, and I'll just need to connect the white wire and the green wire. I'll leave the black wire unplugged for the moment, and you absolutely must not connect the red wire since it carries the 5 volts, so you don't really want to connect that to your PlayStation. So the first thing I'm going to do is to open the command prompt as an administrator, and I'll need to install some necessary dependencies by typing the following commands. And also another command. And after each command, you should see a message confirming a successful installation. Next, I'll plug in the adapter and I'll open Device Manager to navigate to ports and not the name of the adapter. This is crucial as it will be used to access the Syscon, and in this case it says COM5. As I said earlier, I need to connect TX and RX, but I won't connect diag, but I'll attach the ground wire to the PS3's ground, for example on the RF shield. And the PS3 needs to be connected both to 5 volts and 12 volts. The 12 volts aren't strictly necessary to access the Syscon, but you get an error if you attempt to do it without the 12 volts. So right now I need to open the folder containing the Syscon script, then open Linux, and in the file path box I need to type cmd to open a command terminal in that folder. And with everything ready, I need to run the script by typing the file name, and then I need to specify the COM port number, the one that I saw in the device manager. And I also need to indicate the Syscon chip model. In this case, I need to type CXR, and there are two different Syscon chip variants, Mullon and Sherwood, each with slightly differences in accessibility. For example, Sherwood only supports internal mode, while Mullon supports both external and internal mode. And the internal mode is very useful for a deeper understanding of what the problem might be, because it allows you to access additional data, such as the amount of time that the PlayStation was used. So it's very useful for a deeper diagnostic. So at this point I've accessed the external mode, and if everything is working correctly, you should see this. And now I power on the PlayStation and type auth. Keep in mind that it's case sensitive, so you might need to write it in lowercase. I've read that if it doesn't work, you probably swapped the TX and RX cable. And next I type error log get 00, which will return the most recent error, and you can repeat this for other errors by incrementing the number. Fortunately, I don't have to type them all manually, since I just copy them directly from this guide and paste them. This way I get all the most recent errors. However, in the external mode, you can't determine when the errors occurred. You can only check if they happened at the same time by matching the log sessions, but you don't get a clear timestamp or additional details like the total usage time. So at this point, I want to access the internal mode for additional information, and I need to type EEP get 396101, and normally you should see two Fs here instead of these zeros, indicating that the internal mode is disabled. To enable it, you need to set it to 0, as shown in this case. And after doing this, I need to power off the console and connect diode to the ground. I turn the PlayStation back on, I close the command prompt and reopen it. To connect to the Syscon now, we need to use the internal command, so CXRF. So I need to write the file name, COM4, and then CXRF. And now I need to re-enter auth and then type EEPC sum. And this should return the addresses that fail the checksum at values I need to modify, which are listed after the sum line. But in this case, there are none. And if there were, you should write W followed by the address and these two numbers switched. At this point, I type errorlog to view all the errors along their respective dates, and I also want to check the B count to see how much the console has been used. And from this error log, I can see that the most recent error was 3034 and 4432, which might indicate bad solder joints or chip defects. So it could be a bad connection between the CPU and the GPU, since the cell RSX south bridge error during the bit training occurs when the bit calibration fails during the power on. And it's a process that optimizes the communication between the CPU, the GPU, and south bridge, which is usually caused by bad solder joints or chip defects. And right now I want to bring up the console, and bringing up refers to the process of powering on the PlayStation 3 and monitoring the boot sequence through the terminal to gather information about error codes. It powers on, but shuts down almost immediately. Let's try another time. and it gives us new errors. The main issue seems to be a power sequence failure. So at this point, what I could do is to apply hot air to the affected area. While I know it's not a permanent solution, it's a typical troubleshooting method to see if it can restore a proper connection and temporarily fix the issue. Since the GPU is mounted on the motherboard with the BGA method, so ball grid array, and he can restore a proper connection and reflow the solder balls if that is the problem. So I want to try that solution before anything more complex. So I'll put aluminum foil to cover other components, and just to be safe, I'll use Kapton tape to hold it in place. I'm also adding a bit of flux at the corners of the GPU and CPU, and then I'll use a hot air soldering station at 400 degrees. I'm going to reflow the solder joints on the GPU and the CPU. I'll use a hot air soldering station, and I'm going to heat them from above for about 1 or 2 minutes. And the goal is to restore the connections because the GPU and the CPU are mounted on the motherboard with a BGA, so ball grid array layout. And sometimes these solder balls can crack or shift a little bit, causing issues. Of course, this is a temporary fix, it's not a permanent fix, but it's worth trying. And now all that's left is to wait until it cools down to test if it works. Alright, let's see if it works or if I have to reopen the PlayStation again and take a closer look to the motherboard, maybe replace the capacitors. Green light. And it doesn't beep and it doesn't go red either. But there is no video input. It's working. Kinda, because there is black screen. But so far so good, because we still have the green light, but nothing happens. It says impossible to power on because the hard drive is not connected. Maybe there is a problem with the hard drive. I'll try to pull it out and clean it a little bit again. Let's see if it works in this way. I'm also going to put back the screw since I forgot to put it back. And let's see if it works now. Green light, no beeping, no red light, so that's a good sign. But again, no video output. And I'm sure that the hard drive is positioned in the correct way. And it works. I didn't expect this. I don't even have the controller here because I thought it didn't work. Let me grab a controller. Unfortunately, it's in Italian since I've received this console and the Xbox from an Italian subscriber. But even the controller, it's working. Everything works fine. And it's working just fine. Wow, I didn't really expect it that this repair would be so easy, since many times just reflowing the solder joints on the GPU and the CPU isn't enough to fix that issue, but it's working just fine and I want to try a game on it. I'll just try a demo so I'm sure that I won't ruin or scratch any valuable game. I really hope it will work. and it's reading the game. Let's see if it works. In the game, it's actually working fine. I don't see any issue or signs that could indicate that the PlayStation isn't working as it should. So I guess I can move on to the Xbox, and this PlayStation just needed to be cleaned and the solder joints of the GPU needed to be reflowed. So I really wanted to continue this video and fix the Xbox too, but it might not look like it. But the PlayStation 3 fix took me a long time. Also, I never used a hot air soldering station before this week, so I needed to practice on other components and other devices because I didn't want to ruin any components inside my PlayStation 3 or burn any component. So it took me a long time, and I guess I'll just call this video the part 1 of the Xbox and PlayStation 3 repair, and I'll fix the Xbox on the next video. So as always, let me know in the comments what you think. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and to my Patreon page if you want to see updates, photos and videos behind the scene. See ya in the next video. Bye!